business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards.
Do not be afraid to fail.
We can
All right. Happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Talk Sunday. Welcome back to JKC Community, the talk community where we have officially kicked off season 7 and we have hit the ground running. If you saw the preview, then you know that it is getting hot in here. The conversation is heating up. And today we are going to be discussing the 3 W's. For those of you that are new to this platform, my name is Tiffany. I am a licensed clinical social worker by trade and a community activist at heart. And this platform was created as an opportunity to give back to the community and to really just discuss cultural taboos that we're already discussing at the barbershop, the beauty shop, and amongst our friends. And today I am so happy to welcome to the platform one of my dear friends and a longtime petty partner to be able to share in this conversation. And this conversation, with all honesty, and this complete season is meant to reframe our stressors, to really define what stress has been to us and understand that those things are meant to stretch us. So it's going to get a little uncomfortable. It's going to get hot in here, but the goal is to build and develop our muscle so that we can reframe how we experience and challenge stress. So I am going to hand it over to her so she can introduce herself. And I'm going to encourage her not to be shy so I don't have to pull it out of her, to make sure that this is indeed the talk time that we are all anticipating and that everyone can truly grow and get something out of.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Maria. Hailing straight out of Houston, Texas. Oh, man. I am friend, baker, mother, wife, friend, baker, mother, all the things. And I'm ready to get into it.
Okay. All right. So she gave y'all a short introduction, but in those things encompasses so much. Like I mentioned, Maria has been my petty partner for a very long time. We met in college and we have grown so very much since then. So it was important for me to have this conversation with someone who has been a part of the struggle with me, and who's experienced their own struggle and able to have grown from stressing to stretching. So still growing. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We are ever evolving. The pettiness is not completely gone. We probably like it. I'm gonna give us 75% grown.
On a good day.
75% less petty.
47%, I'm starting over for the next year. This year is a bust. We're gonna start over. Next year we're gonna be at like 80%. We're working on it.
Okay. So we have grown at least to a minimum of 70% less petty, and we're continuing to evolve and understand that life comes with its own woes, wounds, and just overall stress level. Now, for me, during my hiatus, one thing that I took time to do and to get back into was like just leisure reading. And I have been reading my very first TD Jakes books, which is surprising to me because as many books as I've read, this is my first book that I've actually read by him. And this book is his latest book, Disruptive Thinking. And there were so many things that stood out to me in this book that I felt like I needed to like have my highlighter, my my color coded pens, and my notepad, excuse me, all at the same time because it was so many things that I wanted to write down. And one of the things that really, really stood out for me that became an affirmation for me while reading this book is that I cannot be defined by people's discomfort of me. And I am one that is very transparent and saying that I have concern and care and worry and woes about people's opinion of me, about their perception of me, because I am real life human. And I've moved past the pettiness to a certain extent and the people pleasing. But what followed in that affirmation for me was understanding that winning is not always the winning season that we see it to be. Winning oftentimes comes with its own wounds, it comes with its own worries, it comes with its own woes. So truly, to just like open up the discussion for today, my question for you is, when you hear winning wounds, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Winning wounds for me, I think about the small victories. Like I know I'm gonna go through things during the week. It's gonna be levels to things. But when I get to Friday, I am counting. I'm counting those small victories because that's what's important. Like, yeah, I went through this, I went through that, but I got through those things, and a win is a win. And sometimes you got to take them where you can get them.
I love that. And I think we had this discussion and I've been repeating it to myself, like, this year, let's celebrate all wins,
Yes,
because we think so elongated of the end goal that we miss those milestones in between. And when you don't take the time to celebrate those small wins or miss those milestones, then you get burnt out just on trying to get to the end.
yes,
um and for me, when it comes down to like understanding these winning wounds, then I oftentimes think of like the decorated soldiers, the scars that they have to endure in order to get to the other side, and the benefit of having enlisted in war, having on taken on that burden of protecting our country, protecting, the US and their own rights as an American.
right. Yeah.
And I think for me, what I'm learning a lot about is there is a very big difference between what you go to and what you go through. And that
Absolutely.
is all about perspective, like understanding from the different vantage points in life. And like you said, like understanding you're going to go through things throughout the week. You're going to go through things throughout the life that you have or the life that you're assigned, which is going to be peaks and valleys, but you can't truly
Yes.
enjoy the peak if you've never been in the valley.
Yeah. And then just understanding like getting to a goal takes steps. You have small goals that lead up to your large goals. So even if it's something small, you have to celebrate that because it's important too. And sometimes I don't even see when I've reached one of my small goals, and it takes, somebody else to be like, okay, well, you did such and such. And I'd be like, well, yeah, yeah, I did. I need to celebrate that. That's important. That was an important piece to a bigger puzzle. So
Right,
sometimes it takes other people to like point it out for you.
right.
So that,
Yeah, the thing that is a blessing and a curse about time itself is a construct.
yeah,
There's so many missed opportunities in time that go over our head because it's the one thing that you will never get back or return on. So if we go through life not celebrating these winning wounds, then we miss out on the progress that we've made in life, and even acknowledging that. And I know for me, and this is likely very old school church, back of the pew type thing. But I come to find that when I go through stuff, I have to recall and remember what I've already surpassed. Like, okay, if this week is ahead of me, just remember, girl, you got through last week. And last week came with its own foolishness,
Yeah.
as you going through these different seasons in life, through these, overcoming these different winning wounds in life. Remember, this is not the first season that things have been uncomfortable, what things haven't been what you
Yes.
wanted them to be or what you anticipated for them to be. And if you can get through this past season, if I got through my 20s,
Yeah.
we have gotten through our 20s, we can get through our 30s.
For sure. For sure. It was a lot of prayers that carried us through the 20s. That is 1000% true.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And like when we talk about these winning wounds, I think for me, like the defining moment of these winning wounds and understanding the peaks and the valleys and the small wins to get from point A to point B and the different vantage points has been understanding and taking accountability for my own mess in my winning wounds. Like I'm gonna take accountability and know that I am a person that retreats. Like I can create distance between myself and a wound. I can create distance between myself and a woe. But I had to come back and say, well, am I creating distance because of something I'm repressing or out of respect for that wound or for that woe? And when I think about those things, I understand that those are as a result of my own disappointments. Like I retreat because I'm disappointed and I can't in that moment manage to overcome that disappointment or be okay with that disappointment. But I think, like you said, when we have these small winnings, small wounds and woes, there has to be some type of line drawn where I'm like, okay, Tiffany, you can address this. Tiffany, this needs not be redressed. So I wonder, like for you and your own experience, where do you draw the line between wounds and woes?
So it really depends on, so it's levels to everything. At this point, at my big age, I feel like some things are worth the energy, and some things I know are going to pull my energy. If it's something that I feel like I haven't sat with, because I'm an overthinker. So I need to think of all the different ways it could go right, all the different ways it can go wrong. What I'm gonna say to what, how I'm going to react to another person's reaction. I have to think of it all. So if it's something I've sat with and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to address this in a way that I can say what needs to be said, I can get my point across, and it's not going to fully drain me, then I know that it's time to unpack. I know it's time to
Mm-hmm.
address that wound. Now, if it's something that I'm just feeling like if I address this, it's gonna drain me, then I know that I'm not really ready to address it. And I try to go into things without a lot of expectations
Mm.
and kind of not kind of expect the unexpected. And if I know I'm ready for it, then I know I'm ready. So whatever the outcome is, I've already told myself, if I got to put a band-aid on it, then I'm gonna have to put a band-aid on it. But if it's gonna scab, then you gotta let it scab. Like
Mm.
you gotta let it. You got sometimes you just have to let the process do what it's gonna do.
Oh, that's hard. I think
Very
for a long time I was, especially when I was in my younger days and my pettiness, I was
with your
kind of
little
like,
age.
yes. In that age, I feel like I needed to get my point across and I needed to express how I feel. Like I needed to have that center stage because I needed it to be known. And as
Mhm.
I've gotten older, I've come to an understanding that not everything requires a reaction, but everything does require a resolve.
For
And
sure.
for me, there's some things that I have had to grow to be okay with. And we'll get into like those things that we have. What do we do with the things we have to grow to be okay with? But having, like you said, things to just simply scab, for me, those are things that render that disappointment, but also a reminder. Because when you have a wound that becomes a scab, you can truly be healed. That doesn't mean that the pain isn't still there. That doesn't mean that you're not triggered by certain things, but
Yep.
that means that that is a reminder for you to understand that this wound is here for a reason. So let me make sure that I'm protective of this area of my life, that I'm protective of this person that I've grown to be, because I don't want to re-injure myself over this scab. You understand what I'm saying?
And you're not gonna re-injure yourself over that scab because it's a memory. You're gonna look
Mm,
at it, you're gonna remember this is what I went through, but it also doesn't have to define you. You can move on from it. Like, yeah, it's still there, but it's healing.
mm,
It's going eventually it'll just be a spot in a memory. And you don't have
mm.
to do it again because you're gonna always have that memory.
I love that. Some things are just a spot in the memory.
Yep.
I love that. Yes, I love that. I think one thing that I've also been kind of working through as I've been stretching myself is really truly understanding my own strength and my weakness. And one thing that has helped me with that is Pastor Mike Jr.'s series on winning and weakness, and him like really defining for me like the difference between discouragement and disappointment. We all have disappointments in life. That's the assignment that we're going to have. But in being disappointment, that's all as a result to a matter of comfortability. We're all going to be uncomfortable at one point in our life. The goal is, even when you are disappointed, to not be discouraged, because discouraged is the things that mess with your motives. And what you never want to be triggered by, what you never want to be wounded by, is something that's going to impact your motives. And Ken is like on me all the time about, like, when I want to go back to that 25% to that 35% Betty, he's like, Tiffany, do you want to miss out on your blessing because of your own hurt or your own pain? And that's something for me
Ooh,
that I'm more
it
often
take a
than
lot.
none, the 70% wins. And I'm like, you know what? Let me take a nap and think about it. And I'm gonna wake up on a better side of this. But
Mhm.
I clearly understand and I get it, in that you have to be mindful of that difference, because if you aren't mindful of that difference, then you fall into a space where you can easily become discouraged by disappointments. So
Yeah.
I want to get your insight on what you consider to be the assignment of wounds and woes as it relates to discouragement and disappointment.
So I try my hardest not to get in that disappointed space because then I start to take a step back and I try to, how do I put it? Like my thing is I try to let people know my expectations, because if you don't say what your expectations are and then people fall short of your expectations is when you get in that disappointed space.
Mm,
And so it's unfair to them and it's unfair to you. So I try not to be unfair to myself in that regard. Um, and that is real heavy on me because I don't like giving expectations of people. I'm a doer. I'm gonna try to do it myself. I'm gonna try to accomplish it myself. I'm gonna try to be the one man team. I'm gonna try to do all of the things. So it's real big for me when I have to, call people in when I'm working as a team. I like being on a team when I can be the team leader. So I'm I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Okay. But I try not to create those moments so that I don't create those wounds and fall into that disappointed space.
Mm. I
I
like that.
try.
I haven't. I am one that has fallen short very often than not of the expectation piece. And the expectation piece and communicating my expectations. Like, I think it's okay to have expectations, but communicating that. So just like you said, I don't disappoint myself nor the other person by not
Yeah.
clearly communicating what my expectations in the situation
Yeah.
are. Um when we
Also, learning how to give something to someone and allowing them to do and process on their own terms.
mm,
So, not trying to have that control and saying, okay, this is how I do it, this is how you need to do it. Because, several ways to skin a cat. So, you got to let people work and go through their own processes without, trying to micromanage.
yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah. I am
Yeah.
not a good micromanager. I make that clear in every area and aspect of my life. That's not something that I don't think I have the capacity to do because I have so many other things that require my attention.
Yeah.
But I do understand that there are assignments with disappointments. There are assignments with discouragement, and those things all play a role.
Yeah.
And the hindsight of adulting is life is very strategic. And regardless of your own personal beliefs, whether it be a higher power, the universe, whatever, whatnot, then all things truly are working together for your good. And there's always
Yeah.
a lesson in everything that you go through. The uncomfortability for me has always been understanding that the roles and responsibilities are ever evolving. The
Yeah.
assignment of people in my life, the assignment of my wounds, of my woes is ever evolving. And my assignment in people's life may not be their assignment in my life. So you may have caused this wound for me so that I can be stretched and so that I can develop, so that I can grow, so that I can find my own resilience, my own tenacity, but that may not be my assignment in your life. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that when we talk about roles, responsibilities, and assignments, that it's a clear understanding that your role is going to always be your role, and that is your responsibility. But the assignment that you have and somebody else have, the assignment of that wound, that assignment of that woe, that assignment of that disappointment, of that discouragement may not be the same in everyone's life. And like you said, I have to give space, opportunity for things to be processed in other people's lives, just like I needed to process in my life.
Yeah. And something we talked about before is kind of like sometimes you have to ask a person. Everybody's going through their own seasons. Everybody have their own stuff. And sometimes you have to ask and not assume like, well, in this season, what is it that, what role is it that you need from me? I
Mm-hmm.
know how I want to show up. I know how I want to be there. I know I feel like I can do A, B, and C, but A, B, and C might not be what you even need. You might
That's
need
true.
X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And as your friend, I am grown enough to say, okay, that ain't what you need. Okay, tell me what you need, sis. I got you.
Yeah.
Or you need something out of me that I'm not able to provide right now. So let's not even do the back and forth. Let's not even be upset with each other. Let's go ahead and lay it out on the table. You need something at this point in life that I'm not able to provide. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Because
Right.
we all grown, we all have things.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what I'm capable of doing. So if you're trying to pull something out of me that ain't there, baby, let's not fight this fight. let's be what each other need. and
Right,
not
right.
just what we think, what we think the other person needs. Because that's not fair because everybody's forever changing and growing.
Yeah. And you can't expect for that not to be the situation. Like we're all going to evolve and change and grow. And
Yeah.
I think it boils down to when it comes to relationships, do you really want to be in that person's life? Do you really want to be of service to that person? Because if that person is of value to you, if that relationship is of value to you, then you just want to simply be a part. Like you don't have to play the role
Then you will.
that you want to play. You just need to be able to be a part. And sometimes that's simply, like you said, being what that person need and not what you want to be. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. I think when you were talking about that, what I was thinking about was like reorganizing my life. Like I've had to reorganize my life in so many different ways. More recently, probably within the last year, because of taking on different responsibilities, different things that have taken place in my personal life, different things that have taken place in my own relationships, and in the different season that I'm in versus the season that other people are in their life. And one thing for me when I've come to reorganize my life is I've also increased my own self-awareness, increase my own self-worth, my own emotional intelligence. And for me, like emotional intelligence is all about perspective. It's all about your response to the uncomfortabilities. It's all about being able to really have accountability for yourself and your role. So I think in reorganizing my life, I've had to increase those things, and even to a certain extent, you know, set new boundaries, set new expectations for myself, so that
Checking in
I'm
with
not,
yourself.
yeah, so that I'm
It's
not
the self check-in.
so that I'm
Yeah.
not the one that so that I'm not disappointing myself, so that I'm not creating a wound that does not need to be a wound. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
the heavy hit of this conversation, the heavy hitter part. And for me, this is like a question. I think this is probably the first question that came to mind when I was like addressing this topic and was writing out the outline. And I'm interested because this this particular, I guess, subtopic is always an ever evolving concern of mine, and that's karma. I believe that for a long time, I will say that that I had the tendency to be spiteful. The tendency to be spiteful in that it wasn't that I wanted to inflict harm, but I would be like, man, when they gonna get theirs? When is it gonna be their time? And I remember like a battle that I had with myself early on in my 20s and processing something with my mom. And my mom told me, she was like, Tiffany, you never know what karma people are dealing with. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that they're not dealing with and processing it. And when we talk about the worries, the woes, the wounds, I'm always concerned, and I know that I battled with it within myself. What do you do with the apology that you'll never get?
Listen. Well, first, when so sometimes you gotta let it go for your own mental health. And it sounds like, no, I ain't letting nothing go because sometimes you feel like things deserve a response, but they don't. Because just like you just said, people come outside and they dressed up and they look nice and they real cute, but life be whooping their ass when they in that house. And they hide their wounds.
Hmm.
They used to hide in their wounds. So you never know when karma is definitely when life is lifing on somebody.
Yeah.
You never know. But the apology that you never gonna get, you gotta learn to live without it. because
Mm.
the sad fact is people gonna be who they gonna be.
Yeah.
But that's okay. My thing is, baby, you could be who you wanna be, but you could be who you gonna be over there. Way over there. Like we're all adults and I don't have to deal with your toxic behaviors. So if that's the energy you want to give and that's what you want to be, you can be that. You can be that all day and all night, but you're not gonna be that over here because I'm
Yeah.
not going to accept that. You want to be that, you can be that over there. And I still love you, boo, but from over there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to come to a point to we agree and to disagree because that apology, do you really need it?
How I feel
Do
like I
you
knew
need it
you
to
was gonna say
heal?
that. I I knew that was gonna come out of your
Because
mouth.
you don't. Because one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna forgive you for my own self, and I don't have to deal with you no more. It
Oh
be
my
just
God.
as simple as that.
I knew you were gonna say that because I know so often people say the forgive and the forget.
Hmm.
And I
Baby, I
know
ain't never
that
gonna forget.
I know that I have been burdened by the apology that I never get. And I've always had that question, like, do I really need the apology that I'll never forget, that I'll never get? Because at the end of the day, if the apology is not sincere and it doesn't come with the true apology, which is a change of behavior, then is the
Then
apology
what you gonna
really
do with it anyway?
right? Is the apology really worth anything? And I truly feel that when it comes down to, that apology that you never forget, for the long time, we were talking about like matching energy. I'm gonna handle
Mhm.
people like they handle me. But if the lick back is too heavy of a burden to bear, then is it really worth the lick back? And I know that in some situations I've had to heal myself from the inside out. I've had to there's probably one apology in life that I can think of off the top of my head that I am okay with if I never get it. And that is because I understand that if I got it today, if I got it on that person's deathbed, if I got it tomorrow or 10 years from now, it will probably never be enough for me. And it will
Baby,
never
it's
make
still
the
gonna be worth a
situation any
penny.
more than what is always been. And it'll never change a
And I
behavior that's gonna always be
and
there.
I already know. I already know.
So I think I'm growing. I'm growing and I'm evolving where I am understanding that in every instance, there is an attachment of a life lesson and that the pain is a part of the process. And because the pain is a part of the process, that's where this stress that I'm experiencing is meant to stretch me. That's when will go to God and say, God, I need you to increase my tolerance. He's just to increase my tolerance to the level of where I can be okay with the apology that I'll never forget, that I'll never get. Why do I keep saying forget? That I'll never get. And I'm not just talking about in your own personal, in your own personal life. I'm talking about in relationships, in the workplace, because I've experienced some things in the workplace where I'm like, there's an apology that I will never get from this person. But I have to be okay with that because I still have to work with that person. And
Yeah.
that's why one thing that has always stayed with me that my friend Heather told me was like, people think when they say God will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemy, that don't mean that your enemy not going to be at the table.
Yeah.
And if it's in the presence of your enemy and they still have a seat at the table, that still means that you're supposed to eat. So I think I'm growing to a place where I'm like, okay, Karma, I'm gonna let you do your thing. I don't have a list anymore. That person knows what they've done. They know, how they've hurt me. I don't have to say anything. I can retreat and move on with my life and allow karma to do what it's supposed to do. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. I appreciate that. As we kind of move into like the feel good part of this conversation. So we've talked about, of course, just the apology that we'll never get. We've talked about the disappointment, the role and the assignment of disappointment and discouragement. We've talked a bit about what winning wounds are and how we identify those things, and even drawing the line between wounds and woes. The feel good part is, how do we move to the point of winning these wounds and moving from the winning wounds and woes to the winning wholeness? What do you have, or what has been your experience with that transition?
Well, for me, that's the coming through part.
Mm.
When I've come through on the other side and I've learned my lesson, because we know in everything you do is a lesson. And I've learned my lesson and I can look back and say, yeah, I did that. That was me. I did that. And I'm gonna be okay. And it's gonna be okay. And whatever whatever the lesson is, I can write it down and say, okay, girl, we don't have to go through that again. Like we know how to skip over that part. We know how to get over that part. That's the wholeness for me.
Mm.
Like when I know that I don't have to go through that again.
Mm.
Like we did it, you know. Life was, they say, uh if life ain't life, and then you ain't living. So when I've life through it and I already know the other side is there, and I can move forward.
Mm.
I can move on and I can move forward. I'm not looking for, that karma, that petty part. I
Mm.
know, like, okay, I'm good. Then I know, like, that's the wholeness for me. Even
Mm.
if it's not the end goal,
Mm.
even if I'm in the middle space and I can see all of the woes and I can stack them up and put them on a shelf,
Mm.
then that's the wholeness part for me.
I like that. I like that. I think one thing that I've learned firsthand, and I'm just about getting a degree in people management. I would like to say that. I'm just about I'm like in my PhD studies of people management. But in my people management, I have learned that you'll continue to bump your head on the same wall until you learn the lesson. And a lot of times in my situation, the lesson wasn't for the other person, the lesson was for me.
Yeah.
And my wholeness has come as a result of understanding that this lesson was for me. Sometimes my bumping my head up against the wall, especially in love, my bumping my head up against the wall in love was for me to see my own worth, for me to understand and have awareness and insight into what I identified as love and what wasn't love, and what I needed in myself to be loved, and how to express love. So I know my head bumps were for me to learn lessons. And like one of our dear friends, Rodney, challenged me like early in the summer before I went on hiatus. We were having a completely different conversation about something. And he challenged me and like, Tiffany, I want you to work on your core. And I was like, work on my core? What you mean you work on my core? And when he broke it down for me and understanding like what core training is, how that is meant to help you to find balance in life, help you to find stability in life, for me that was the wholeness. And when you work toward wholeness, I appreciate that you said, wholeness may not be the end goal, it can be in the middle. because I think a lot of my wholeness has come from me understanding and being okay with being in the middle, and then not necessarily being my end goal. Because when you begin core training, you have to be mindful of how you do these exercises and how you build your core, because you can overexert yourself and you can do more harm than good. And never in life, as we are going through these winning wounds, as we're going through these seasons, as we're going through these worries and woes, is the intent to cause more harm than good. I mean, it's meant to grow, and process the pain so that you can progress beyond what you've gone through. So for me, that wholeness has been coming to a place of peace that is not as a result of the pain.
Mm,
We talked about a lot of good stuff.
yeah.
We talked about a lot of good stuff. I think, and what we will leave you guys with today is our testaments and what we want to be clear that everyone will take from this. And I'll start with you, Maria. What is your testament of everything that we talked about today that you want to be sure that people take with them when they think about the winning wounds and wholeness?
I would say life is a process. It's gonna be curved roads, it's gonna be peaks, it's gonna be valleys, it's gonna be sometimes it's a little river you have to jump over, sometimes it's an ocean you have to swim through. But be kind to yourself through the process. Give yourself that grace to know, okay, I'm growing through this season. And I think that's the most important part that I had to learn for myself was to give myself grace.
Mm.
Like you growing. You gotta go through a little dirt, but the sun gonna come out
Yeah,
and you gonna see your own growth.
yeah,
And that's when you'll know, like, okay, I'm coming out the mud a little bit. I'm coming out the mud. It might have been raining yesterday, but the sun out today, and see your own growth. Like, be okay with it. You have to learn how to sit with it, and and love yourself through it.
yeah. I love that. I agree with um learning that life is, or accepting, not just learning, but accepting that life is a process, and understanding that there's truly no rainbow without the rain, and there's no progress without the peaks and the valleys in between.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I've
you never know your strengths until they get pulled out of you, until you until you have to use them.
You
You
don't know
never
how
know that
strong you're
you
going to
have
be until
them.
you have no choice but to be strong.
Yep.
And that part is a part in itself. And I think
Yeah.
my testament at this place and space in my life is to be more concerned with the vibes and the views than the things that, like you said, take away from that or drain you from the goodness in that. I mean, I make this joke all the time. Like, if they gave the opportunity to say, y'all can go serve 30 days in jail and get your student loans, get your student loans revoked. As long as you and I there are together, we together, then the 30 days gonna be a breeze. We gonna go in there, we gonna knock it out. And that is a view that, that's something that I don't want to have to do, but sometimes it's about the views and the vibes that you have
Yeah.
that make life worth living, even when life is life.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I
I
truly
agree.
hope that this conversation has helped someone and has given insight into their own wounds and winning wounds and their own woes and discouragement, and moving past that to stretch to be and focus on wholeness, whether it be in the middle or the end goal, that we always progress toward wholeness. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. I have a few announcements that I want to share as we wrap up. This season 7 is like this is just the beginning. Our next episode, we have another talk guest that is a familiar face but new to the actual platform. And in that talk time, we're going to be discussing reality versus perception, or perception versus reality, whichever one you want to tackle first. So that too is going to come in hot, and it's going to be a conversation that will, I'm hoping, help us to build our muscle in progress, build our muscle in stretching for us to build our core and to grow past the things that we have going on. This season also includes a couple of ongoing collaborations and ventures. And as we are officially transitioning into fall, we will have our Pack the Purse campaign, as well as our care kits for the homeless. So that is coming really, really soon. Make sure you remain connected about that, and that you also, if you like to donate, that you reach out to me directly. The visionary retreat is on the way. Like everything is planning. Like that's what's life for me right now. And in that life we are at an October 15th deadline for lodging. What that means, if you wish to lodge on site for the retreat, then you must have booked and paid 25% of your retreat costs by October 15th. If you have questions, concerns, barriers, burdens, please reach out to me directly. And I am more than happy to address and offer whatever assistance I can. But that retreat itself is going to be an awesome time, filled with self-discovery, awareness, self-care, and accountability. So yeah, make sure that you remain connected for those things. Outside of that, Maria, I appreciate you and your transparency and being a part of this conversation on today. I hope that we can have you back for many more talk times, and that you will not be a stranger. If you would like, you are more than happy to share your social media with people. If not, then that is cool too.
What's my Instagram? I think it's just Rhea 85 or something like that. And I'll be on TikTok and all Snapchat and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm very proud of what you're doing. So I'm excited for you.
All right. So you can find her on TikTok, Instagram, or any other platform where people is talking and living life. Outside of that, you guys have a great Sunday. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, and effort. And we look forward to another talk time on the 17th of September. And in the meantime, I encourage you guys, as always, to keep talking. Have a good evening, everybody.